I give up. I can't be funny anymore. Every time I try to seriously share my feelings on some video gamey topic, I have to make 2 or 3 wisecracks a minute. All I'm saying is, Wario World deserved better. So I'm now introducing the not funny segment, the part of my self-expressive monologue where I can't even laugh about the ape on the front cover, which means absolutely no jokes whatsoever. I have to abide by that. I just got back from an intervention. And this new segment starts in 3, 2, 1. Okay, now that that's out of the way, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. I think I already failed. This game is one of the games that released on the Wii U. Only a couple hundred were given that honor. Now I love myself some obscure Mario games, from Mario's Tennis on the Virtual Boy to Super Mario Picross. This series definitely has its fair share of head scratchers. I keep staring at this one and it still doesn't make sense. But those are titles nobody talks about compared to something like Super Mario 64 or Mario Kart Wii. But there is a certain middle ground that a few of these games fall under. Games that aren't talked about too often, but nobody will spit their drink out after hearing its name. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is one of those games. I stand corrected. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker got its start out in Super Mario 3D World. Now Super Mario 3D World is someone's favorite 3D Mario game. Put simply, the game goes for a very basic style that doesn't try and do anything all too new, and it didn't take the series in an interesting direction. That being said, I still think it's one of the better 3D Mario titles, and easily one of the best games on the Wii U. I don't think anyone can dispute that. But Super Mario 3D World was definitely focused on what many call variety. I'm pretty sure Motley Boss Blob was just a publicity stunt, but there were a few special levels that appeared in every other world centering around Captain Toad, a character that made his debut as a pretty unsubstantial character who shows up when he feels like it in Super Mario Galaxy. But these levels were all about him. You can't jump, you simply have to walk from place to place. And these are fine. I can't say that I'm raring to go for room every time I go for the game, but they just don't feel like they belong. It's so different from the actual gameplay in the game, which is quick and snappy with how it paces its levels and structure. There aren't that many Captain Toad levels though, and they're all just small dioramas you can walk around while solving minute puzzles. You'd think Nintendo would take this as a chance to smack it on the back of the box for another selling point, but no, we had to show the invincibility leaf. But later it was announced that Captain Toad would be getting a game all to himself. I think I like the idea of taking levels that work so well on their own in a separate game and making a new game out of it. Kirby does this a lot, if still on a downloadable scale. But I feel like this was the right move for Nintendo to make. People had already gotten a taste of what a Captain Toad game could be like, so people knew what to expect from this game. But that can also work against it in a way. I can imagine that many people think that this is a cash grab attempt at making more money off of an existing engine. And what if they didn't like the Captain Toad levels in 3D World because they were so random and basic? What if this game, being a sort of spin-off to 3D World, still carried its philosophy of boring level designs and stale locations? And on top of that, really? A Toad game? Has Nintendo truly run out of ideas? Probably not. But I can say that for what it matters, I was interested in this game. And that brings us to where we are today. In the simplest of terms, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is an expanded version of the levels found in Super Mario 3D World, with tons more levels and game mechanics. Well, let's cut right to the meat of the game and talk about the levels in question. Right from the start, the goal is often in plain sight, but the tricky part is getting to it. Each level has its own little puzzle box that's waiting to be figured out. You can rotate the camera about to get a different perspective on things, which is sometimes the key to solving a whole puzzle that the level wants you to solve. Many objects are obscured behind other objects, and this only becomes clear when you actually look at the level from the other side. Each level might be small, but that also means that the gameplay is much tighter. There's not anything else to focus on aside from the puzzle that's right in front of you. And it isn't like I'm going to be slumped over in a chair for hours on end trying to figure out each puzzle. No, none of them are too difficult, and some have the same general solutions as one another. But the game isn't trying to get you to think hard, it's just trying to get you to think, which is something that I've really been trying to do lately. My shirt is on backwards. I do like how these levels work in concept and conception. They do exactly what was done in 3D World, but with much more variety in its level designs as well as themes. Captain Toad's gameplay in its nature is rather slow, but if you start getting used to the certain tricks that the game plays on you, the game will go by a lot quicker in terms of its pace, which was when I found the game to be at its most enjoyable. But what about the Captain himself? He is in the title after all. I've tried scouring other media for his presence, but my efforts go unrewarded. Captain Toad has several quirks that make his control scheme unique, and honestly more different than any game I've ever played. For one, his backpack is so heavy that he doesn't even have the ability to jump at all, so the most he can do is walk around and rely on already existing ramps or rising platforms to get him from floor to floor. Of course he can't be jumping around like this is a platformer. This game has to be in the same genre as Puyo Puyo Tetris. Given that you can't jump, your speed relies on how quickly you can get around obstacles while also rotating the camera around to make sure you know what's up, while also solving the puzzles that lie ahead of you before you sit there for a moment scratching your head and wasting time. Captain Toad is a very slow character to control, but I think it works because of how he's utilized to get through the levels. If anything, while you're moving tiny legs, you can get to work on solving puzzles that you aren't even at yet. But that isn't to say that Captain Toad is completely powerless, he's just utterly powerless. Alone, he has no strength whatsoever, but he can throw turnips that are nested in the ground to perform a hearty throw. This is the main source of cartoon violence that you'll see on the ESRB rating, as it makes the enemy spontaneously combust on impact. How hard are these turnips being thrown? Captain Toad has one heck of an arm. I know I don't, but there are even a few items for him to pick up that appear every once in a while. There are only 2, but they must be pretty in-depth. I mean, why include items at all if you're only gonna go for 2 pretty insignificant ones? They're not. I should have called my agent before taking this one. There's the pickaxe, which is basically just an invincibility star, but you can destroy blocks with it. And there's the double cherry, which acts the same way that it did in 3D World. The pickaxe was fun to use, and the double cherry works great with the puzzle-based gameplay, but I don't think it would be too greedy to ask for a bit more variety. The stages themselves have all of these cool set pieces, with the game itself having many gimmicks that it sticks to in several stages. And it just led down to the amount of items that there are is a bit disappointing. They didn't even have to be original. I just feel like there are so many power-ups like the double cherry that could benefit from a puzzle-based makeover. But sure, they can just stick googly eyes on an inanimate object. Nobody cares. Which means I'm not normal. One thing that I will give this game is that it was a perfect game for the Wii U. It just fits the attitude of the system so well, which is probably why no one cared about the Wii U. See, this game doesn't do anything special. It won't define gaming for generations to come. It's simply a novelty for many to look back on, even though it can be acknowledged that it was pretty good. Now replace Captain Toad with the Wii U, and we have another sentence that completely works. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is the Wii U's Wario World. And they all laughed at me. Being completely serious here, Captain Toad also uses many of the Wii U's gimmicks, such as the touchscreen, microphone, and even its gyroscope. I know most Wii U games had access to all of these features and more, but were you really gonna go for the gyroscope camera in 3D World? I heard of someone who tried it out. It's been 8 years since he ran away from the country. All of these gimmicks work in the game's favor, and I'd sort of treat it as if it was making up for the game's lack of variety, because this game is just like 3D World, with the same art style, same effort, and same feeling of squeaky clean polish. And being such a perfect fit for the Wii U, Nintendo had to give it a Switch port. This just doesn't work on the system. The game was built with the Wii U in mind, and being the unique console that it was, it's hard to replicate what it had to offer on a modern platform. Playing the game on a docked Switch with neither a touchscreen, microphone, or gyroscope just feels off. Looking through the Wii U gamepad, it looked like you were peering into one of those little dioramas in your hand that you can mess around with. Playing the game through handheld mode works better than nothing, but still, it isn't the same. The 3DS version is pretty good though. I'd expect nothing less from something the size of an Altoid tin. The 3DS version is almost exactly like the Wii U version. You have 2 screens and all of the benefits that come with it. There were a few 3DS ports from the Wii U in the past, but this one probably makes the most sense because of how gimmicky the game itself is. The Wii U and 3DS have very similar gimmicks, and the only big difference between them is that, as I've said, this one is the size of an Altoid tin. The game just fits on the 3DS, not only because of its gimmicks, but also because the 3D truly makes it feel like you have a little small puzzle cube in your hands. Even though the game came out late in the 3DS's life, when Nintendo stopped putting their effort into the 3D-ness of their games, this game still got the special treatment, which is so cool to me. These 2 versions of the game are on the same level to me. But there is one thing I forgot to mention that the Switch version has above the 3DS and Wii U versions. Paid DLC. The new Super Mario Odyssey levels were brought into the Switch version as well as the 3DS version, which is neat. But soon after the game released on the system, paid DLC was announced to be coming to the game. You know, I love when the definitive version of a game that came out years ago comes to a new platform, getting DLC that absolutely no one expected outside of the conspirator down the street. I especially love it when it happens twice. This DLC adds quite a few more levels, and they're all just as good as the ones featured in the main game, and that's about it. There isn't anything exceptional about them, it's just more Captain Toad, which is something that I could have more of in my life. It's just a very odd thing to do for a game that most people had already forgotten about. They could have done this for a Switch port like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, an incredible game that could have had its mechanics and world expanded immensely, but sure, go for the stupid pick. But in general, all of these versions will give you the same unexceptional experience, but there's nothing wrong with that. This game isn't trying to wow anyone with its visuals or be an incredible experience experience that racks around in the back of your brain for a while, it doesn't pretend to be anything more than what it is, an expanded version of a concept shown in a previous game. But once looking past the fact that it doesn't try to do anything groundbreaking or even all too new, it manages to be an engaging time with its variety of level themes and moment-to-moment puzzle solving. It might be a forgotten page in Nintendo's history books, but I'd like to think of it as the title that defined Nintendo's attitude during this generation, for better or for worse. For worse.